Darius Evans exhaled slowly as he stepped into the sleek, modern terminal of Zenith Airlines' flagship lounge, his tailored charcoal suit and polished leather shoes commanding attention even before anyone's eyes met him. The CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, he was accustomed to operating in boardrooms and high-level negotiations, where every move was scrutinized and every decision carried immense weight. Today, however, his focus was entirely on a personal flight, a rare moment of solace away from the relentless pressures of corporate life. Yet as he approached the boarding gate, his mind was covertly troubled by the nagging thought that the familiar comforting order of his daily world was about to collide with something unexpected. Before boarding, Darius had made a brief stop at the VIP lounge for a moment of respite, enjoying a freshly brewed artisan coffee while briefly engaging in congenial banter with the lounge staff. In his eyes, the gleaming counters and immaculate environment were a testament to the airline's reputation for refined service. But as he reached his designated VIP seat, reserved exclusively for high-ranking passengers, a small ripple of unease began to build. From the corner of his eye he noticed a white passenger entering with an air of entitlement, casually glancing at the seating charts posted on the walls. Darius couldn't help but notice that the passenger's gaze was directed toward the seat Darius had so recently claimed, a seat that the airline had proudly advertised as reserved for VIP passengers. Within moments, the atmosphere in the lounge shifted from relaxed confidence into a subtle yet palpable tension. The white passenger, clad in business casual attire and carrying an expensive leather briefcase, strode directly toward the seat, pausing before it as if deciding whether it was rightfully his. The lounge attendant, whose eyes darted nervously between the two, cleared her throat and approached Darius with hesitation. "Sir," she said in a quivering tone, "I'm sorry, but management has decided to reassign this seat." Darius's eyes narrowed. In his long career, he had often weathered challenges and bias in many forms, yet his heart pounded in disbelief at the blatant slight. He raised his voice, a measured, respectful yet firm tone that brooked no contradiction. "I was assigned this seat as a VIP passenger," he replied, his words steady even as indignation simmered beneath. "I expect that right to be respected." The attendant's face flushed with embarrassment, and the white passenger stepped forward. "Actually," he said, his tone laced with quiet arrogance, "I believe I was given priority for this seat, based on my frequent flyer status." His claim was delivered with a certainty that left no room for second opinions. Darius shook his head slowly. For him, this wasn't merely an issue of seating. It was a matter of dignity, of respect for his hard-earned accomplishments, and of an unjust decision that mirrored far larger systemic issues. The ensuing conversation was brief, punctuated by terse exchanges between the two men and the increasingly nervous lounge staff. In the heated disagreement that followed, Darius was compelled to step aside, and in a stunning display of hypocrisy, the VIP seat was awarded to the white passenger while Darius was directed to a lesser seat near the back of the room. Stunned and incensed beyond measure, Darius's composure wavered for a fleeting moment. He retreated, not in anger but rather in resolve, his spirit ignited by the injustice he had just experienced. In his mind, every experience of marginalization now converged in this single event. He recalled his struggles and triumphs, the countless times in his life he had been told to step aside or quiet down, and for once now, he refused to be silent. As the plush seating he had been shifted to barely offered a parallel to his accustomed comfort, Darius quietly resolved that this episode was far from over. He pulled out his smartphone and began drafting a series of messages, organizing his thoughts and contacts, steps that would soon turn this incident into a catalyst for far-reaching consequences. Within 5 turbulent minutes, the lounge erupted into chaos, a chain of events so surreal that even the most seasoned corporate executive would have struggled to process it. The board of Zenith Airlines, watching from the control center, quickly concluded that the debacle was symptomatic of a deep-rooted problem in their approach to customer service and diversity. In an emergency meeting convened by the airline's CEO, explanations were demanded and accountability was pursued. The reassignment of the VIP seat had inadvertently exposed a latent bias, and as internal communication zoomed through the organizational network, a decision was reached with unprecedented swiftness, all the lounge staff responsible for the incident were to be terminated immediately. Rumors spread quickly throughout the lounge and into the waiting areas, each retelling growing more dramatic than the last. Soon, a beleaguered staff member, a middle-aged woman named Marjorie, found herself the first to be escorted out by security. A few minutes later, one after another, figures in crisp staff uniforms were marched out in silence, their faces a mixture of despair, disbelief, and anxiety. Darius watched from his new seat, his heart heavy with the sudden and total upheaval that seemed to consume not just his personal pride, but also the lives of those who had been innocent participants in a system that now looked deeply flawed. That single act of discrimination had unraveled the delicate tapestry of service, trust, and respect that had long been taken for granted by the institution. Darius made his way to a quieter corner by the massive windows overlooking a runway streaked with silvery jets as the sky blushed with the hues of late afternoon. The event, trivial on the surface, had awakened a deeper consciousness within him, a realization that every injustice, no matter how small, reverberates to reveal greater societal fractures. As passengers whispered in hushed tones and glances shot furtively between startled onlookers, Darius began to see himself not as a lone victim of a singular incident but as a representative of a broader struggle against an enduring legacy of prejudice. In that moment, he decided that it was his duty to transform this personal affront into a call for systemic change, a challenge to every organization that treated diversity as a mere buzzword rather than a lived reality. The ripple effect of the unfolding incident soon reached beyond the confines of the airport terminal. Local media outlets, always eager for corporate controversy and human interest stories, began reporting on the bizarre series of events with piercing headlines. Black CEO demoted in VIP lounge incident, entire staff dismissed, read one headline, while another insisted, airline scandal exposes deep-seated racism, 5-minute uproar leaves staff out in the cold. The news spread swiftly across social platforms, igniting public outrage, and eliciting impassioned responses from community leaders, diversity advocates, and even rival corporate executives. Social media buzzed with debates and hashtags, #RespectEverySeat, #EqualityInFlight, and #No More Discrimination, each serving as rallying calls for change. Darius found himself at the nexus of a movement that pitted centuries-old biases against the modern imperatives of inclusion and respect. As the media spotlight intensified, Darius was soon approached by legal advisors and civil rights organizations, all eager to harness the power of his personal experience for a broader social campaign. In a quiet corner of a busy coffee shop away from the prying eyes of the press, he met with Cassandra Barnes, a seasoned attorney with a reputation for championing marginalized voices. Cassandra's eyes burned with determination as she laid out the strategy, a comprehensive lawsuit that would hold Zenith Airlines accountable for their discriminatory actions and demand sweeping changes to their policies. Darius, she said with unwavering conviction, this is not just about a VIP seat. This is about the principle that every person, regardless of their skin color or status, deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. We have an opportunity here to set a powerful precedent. Darius listened intently, his gaze shifting from reflective to resolute. His experience on that fateful day at the lounge had already altered the rhythm of his daily existence. Now, aligned with Cassandra's fervor, he saw a path to not only address his personal injustice but also to mount a formidable challenge against an organization complicit in sustaining inequity. In the subsequent weeks, he worked tirelessly, a balance of boardroom meetings by day and grassroots organizing by night, reaching out to other victims of discriminatory practices and mobilizing support across diverse communities. His once solitary grievance had now blossomed into a clarion call for accountability in every institution where the undercurrent of prejudice might still be surreptitiously governing decisions. The legal battle that followed was as complex as it was emotionally charged. Zenith Airlines, a titan in the industry with millions in revenue and decades of established reputation, was not accustomed to facing litigation that questioned the very core of its corporate ethics. The company's legal team mobilized rapidly, gathering testimonies from employees and compiling records to justify the abrupt dismissal of their entire staff. Their argument hinged on procedural disruption and alleged mismanagement rather than the overt discriminatory motives that critics, including Darius and his legal team, presented with undeniable clarity. The courtroom became a battleground of ideologies, a clash between tradition and progress, between entrenched power structures and voices that demanded recognition and reform. Witnesses from the lounge recounted the sequence of events with varying degrees of candor. Marjorie, the first attendant to be fired, tearfully testified that she had always prided herself on offering warm, genuine service, and that the decision to remove Darius had been orchestrated by management without concrete justification. Another witness, a younger attendant named Jason, recounted being instructed by a floor manager to put the company's reputation first, even if it meant denying simple decency. These testimonies, articulated with raw emotion and palpable sincerity, painted a picture of an organizational culture distanced from the ideals it purported to represent. In the face of such glaring inconsistencies, Cassandra's argument gained momentum, compelling the jury to look beyond the surface and confront the painful truths behind the airline's decisions. As the trial unfolded, the collective narrative of the case evolved from a personal grievance into a poignant exploration of systemic injustice. Across the country, boardrooms and water coolers alike buzzed with debates about the responsibilities of corporations in fostering truly inclusive environments. Darius, who had once navigated corporate corridors with measured ambition, now found himself thrust into the role of a public figure and advocate. At media appearances, he spoke not only of the incident but also of a broader vision, a world where no one would be forced to trade their dignity for compliance, where every individual was afforded the respect they deserved simply by virtue of their humanity. "This is not about one seat or one job," he told a captivated audience at a nationally televised talk show, his tone both gentle and powerful. "It is about affirming that every human being, regardless of their origin or appearance, deserves to be seen, acknowledged, and valued." The evidence presented in court, including internal memos, emails between managers, and testimonies highlighting a culture of silent compliance, started to dismantle the airline's narrative of innocence. Legal experts reviewed the documents, noting that decisions regarding customer seating and staff assignments appeared to be influenced by preconceptions that had little to do with efficiency or service standards, and everything to do with an outdated hierarchy of privilege. For Darius, every piece of evidence reinforced an unsettling, but undeniable, truth, that discrimination could lurk behind even the most polished veneers of industry giants. In the midst of the legal struggle, Darius embarked on a journey of introspection and transformation. Recognizing that his personal trauma was inextricably linked to the broader implications of systemic injustice, he began devoting time to mentoring young professionals from marginalized backgrounds. In a series of intimate gatherings held at community centers and university campuses, he shared not only his experiences but also the lessons he had learned about resilience, persistence, and the strength found in collective action. "You must never allow anyone to define your worth," he would say, his words imbued with both the wisdom of hard-won battles and the tenderness of personal vulnerability. Success is measured not by the accolades you accumulate, but by your courage in standing up for what is right. These sessions, often punctuated by impassioned exchanges and heartfelt confessions, became a source of empowerment for a generation seeking inspiration in the echoes of Darius's struggle. As the trial reached its climax, the tension in the courtroom became nearly unbearable. The presiding judge, known for a strict adherence to justice tempered by compassion, listened intently as the final arguments were laid bare, arguments that intertwined legal technicalities with the raw reality of lived experience. Each side delivered its case with fierce determination, but it was the subtle yet unshakable humanity conveyed by Darius's testimony that resonated most clearly. Standing before the jury, his voice calm yet resolute, he recounted the loneliness and disillusionment that followed that fateful moment in the lounge. "I was not simply removed from a seat," he explained, "I was told implicitly that my identity had somehow diminished the value of my achievements. And that message, no matter how quietly delivered, has a far-reaching impact, not just on me, but on every person who's ever felt sidelined or silenced." The courtroom fell silent, each juror absorbing his words as if they were weighing the balance of justice itself. After days of prolonged deliberation, during which tension and anticipation rippled through every news cycle and social media thread, the verdict was finally delivered. In a decision that reverberated far beyond the polished walls of the courthouse, the jury ruled in favor of Darius and his legal team. Zenith Airlines was found liable for engaging in discriminatory practices, and the sweeping judgment not only required financial compensation but also mandated significant revisions to their corporate policies. The ruling was celebrated as a landmark moment for corporate accountability, sending shockwaves through industries and prompting a nationwide conversation about the pervasive impact of racial bias in modern institutions. In the immediate aftermath of the verdict, Darius returned to the airport, this time not as a disgraced passenger but as a symbol of resilience and change. Amid a small, respectful crowd that gathered to witness his return to a world forever altered by his stand against injustice, he offered a quiet smile and a word of thanks to those who had supported his journey. "We are in the business of progress," he said, his voice resonating with the warmth of understanding and the firmness of conviction. "Today's victory is not mine alone, it's a victory for every voice that refused to be diminished, every heart that demanded to be heard." The ripple of his words spread through the gathering like a beacon of hope, igniting a broader commitment to transforming industries from within. Over the following months, the impact of the verdict was felt in myriad unexpected ways. Zenith Airlines, under new leadership now attuned to the demands of inclusivity and equity, began a rigorous overhaul of its hiring practices, service standards, and internal culture. Training programs emphasizing unconscious bias, diversity, and sensitivity were instituted at every level, with regular reviews to ensure lasting change. For the former lounge staff, once caught in the whirlwind of public disgrace and abrupt termination, new opportunities arose as advocacy organizations collaborated with the airline to craft supportive measures and retraining initiatives. Despite the pain of their initial dismissal, many of those individuals eventually found that the turbulent period had unwittingly unlocked doors to roles that better appreciated their talents and integrity. In a quiet office overlooking a rapidly evolving cityscape, Darius continued to serve as a mentor and advocate long after the trial ended. His days were filled with a new sense of purpose as he coordinated community events, engaged with corporate leaders on matters of ethics, and maintained a steady presence in national dialogues on race and inclusion. His personal experience had transformed him from an individual grappling with isolated prejudice into a unifying force for in-depth conversation and lasting reform. Each engagement and each conversation reinforced the notion that change was most sustainable when built on understanding, empathy, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths head-on. Across the country, countless institutions took note of the case. Schools, universities, and even other airlines initiated audits of their practices, each driven by the shared realization that discrimination, however subtle, was intolerable in any arena of public service. It became common to hear discussions not only about what had transpired in that airport lounge but also about how organizations could transcend superficial commitments to diversity and truly engage with the challenges of modern society. In boardrooms, the story of the dismissed CEO and the fired staff served as a cautionary parable, a reminder that when the pursuit of profit and service eclipsed the importance of human dignity, the consequences, both legal and moral, could be devastating. The transformation was neither immediate nor free of setbacks. There were moments of public regression when ulterior motives and entrenched biases attempted to undermine the progressive strides that had been made. Yet in every such instance, Darius's steady influence and the unwavering support of those who believed in justice ensured that each misstep was met with accountability and a renewed commitment to reform. For the communities that had rallied around his cause, his legacy became both a personal inspiration and a blueprint for overcoming the systemic challenges that had often seemed insurmountable. His voice, once silenced by the indignity of an undeserved demotion, now rang out loudly in the halls of power and in the hearts of every person who dared to envision a better tomorrow. As time went on, the story evolved into something of modern mythology, a narrative recounted with reverence at community gatherings, corporate ethical seminars, and even in classrooms where students discussed the importance of civic responsibility. Darius's experience had transcended its origin, embodying the universal struggle for equality and respect in an ever-shifting socio-political landscape. His journey, marked by both heartbreak and triumph, served as a testament to the complexity of human interaction and the transformative potential inherent in every act of resistance against injustice. In the final chapters of this unfolding saga, the memory of that fateful day in the VIP lounge persisted, not as a moment of humiliation for one man but as a catalyst for a revolution in corporate culture and public consciousness. Darius's proud silence in the face of prejudice, his unwavering commitment to turning personal pain into collective strength, and the subsequent reformation of Zenith Airlines became an enduring reminder that sometimes even the smallest spark could ignite change on a monumental scale. And while the scars of that encounter remained, they were now inscribed within a broader narrative of hope, determination, and the relentless pursuit of a more equitable society. In reflecting on the journey that had begun in the silent tension of an airport lounge and culminated in widespread institutional reform, Darius recognized that every battle, no matter how challenging, held the promise of transformation. With a renewed commitment to fostering environments where every individual was valued and where discriminatory practices would no longer be tolerated, he dedicated himself to building bridges between diverse communities and nurturing young leaders who would carry the torch of progress well into the future. And so, as the rhythms of daily life resumed their steady cadence, there remained a vital truth at the heart of it all, that even in the face of injustice, the collective will of those who believe in dignity and equality can alter the destinies of entire organizations, industries, and ultimately, societies. Darius Evans had not only reclaimed his dignity that day but had become the embodiment of a movement that would echo in every boardroom, every classroom, and every community that ever dared to stand up for what is right. In the twilight of a memorable day at the airport, with the hum of departing flights merging with the low murmur of an inspired crowd, Darius looked out over the runway and felt the profound weight of responsibility and hope. The story of injustice, sparked by a single seat, had blown open barriers to reveal much larger questions about respect, identity, and the power of unity in the face of prejudice. And in that simple act of defiance, a cascade of change was set in motion, a change that would forever remind the world that every individual has the capacity to rewrite the narrative of their own destiny. As the evening deepened and the terminal lights took on a soft glow, Darius whispered a quiet promise to himself and to all who had stood by him, that he would continue to fight, to speak, and to work tirelessly until every voice, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, was given the space, time, and respect it deserved. In his resolute eyes and the resolute hearts of countless supporters, there was the unmistakable spark of revolution, a spark that had been ignited by injustice and nurtured by the enduring belief that one act of courage could transform an institution and, in doing so, change the world. And so concludes the story of a day that began with a seemingly minor error in service and ended with a resounding verdict for justice, a day that taught us that no matter how deeply woven prejudice might be, it can always be challenged, and that a single moment of standing up for what is right can inspire change on a scale far beyond what any one person could have ever imagined.